If you're still rocking an old school ice cooler and getting tired of running to the store every time you want to use it, only to have your food floating around in the water, maybe it's time for an upgrade. Today I'm breaking down the pros and cons of a regular ice cooler,
word to your mother,
ice, ice, baby, versus a more modern electric cooler, to see which one's best for your adventures. And later in the video, I'll be doing some testing, breaking down a budget versus a more expensive electric cooler option. Let's get started. With traditional coolers, the cooling depends entirely on how much ice you put inside it and how often you open it. For a 45 quart cooler like this Yeti, it'll cost you about $5 of ice to get it cool. Best case, you get 3 to 5 days of cooling before everything turns into a watery mess. All your food, drinks, snacks are just floating around in water. You know how it is. The advantages of these kind of coolers is that they're nearly indestructible, they're bear-proof, they're lockable, and they're relatively cheap compared to the electric coolers. The electric coolers work just like the refrigerator you have at home. It's got adjustable temperatures, no watery mess, and it can even freeze. So you can have ice cream or even make ice while you're out camping. They can be powered by battery, 12-volt cigarette adapter, 120-volt AC, USB, or even hooked up to solar power. They have a power consumption of about 65 watts with the compressor kicking on and off. So a 100-watt solar power will basically keep this thing running forever. The battery also serves as a power bank with 3 USB inputs. This fridge has about a 300 watt-hour battery, so it costs pennies to charge and run versus $5 every time you want to use an ice cooler. This 30-quart electric cooler can hold the same, if not more, food than a 45-quart ice cooler, because half of the capacity on the ice cooler is taken up with ice. These fridges can get pretty heavy when they're fully loaded. So I like how this Anker has wheels and an extendable handle that turns into a table. It's also got a built-in light, so when you're camping in the nighttime, you're not rummaging around in the dark for your food. So let's talk money. A rotomotive cooler like this Yeti will cost you anywhere from $250 to $500. That's not including the $5 of ice you have to buy every time you want to use it. When you get into the electric coolers like these, the price can range anywhere from $150 all the way up to the thousands. This 23-quart Bouge RV is only about $150. But when you talk about the coolers in the $200 and under range, you're only talking about the 12-volt coolers that can run off 12-volt or just plug in. So they don't have an internal battery. When you talk about the internal battery coolers like this Anker or the EcoFlow, they start at about $600 and go up to about $800 to $900. But over time, you'll save money on the ice and have fridge-level convenience on the go. So I ran a little experiment on both of these fridges. I had the Anker powered off the internal battery hooked up to a 100-watt solar panel, and this Bouge RV hooked up to this Eco River 3 with a 288 watt-hour battery connected to a 100-watt solar panel. I ran both of these fridges overnight to see how long it would last. The Bouge RV ran about 8 hours before the battery died, and when this battery died, the Anker still had about 50% left on the battery. And then when the sun came up, the sun basically charged both of these batteries back up to 100%. So just know that a budget fridge like this Bouge RV will work as long as you have reliable power. So let's look at 2 options that could be good for someone looking to get into an electric fridge. First, the low budget option. This setup right here will cost you around $400. Now I know $400 sounds like a lot, but just keep in mind you don't have to pay $5 every time you want to use a fridge. This would probably be a bare minimum setup for an electric fridge that can run off-grid. A 23-quart 12-volt cooler will run you about $160. A small battery bank in the 280 watt-hour range will be around $180. And then you can get a hard glass solar panel for about $50 to $60. A $160 fridge isn't going to be as efficient, and it's not going to have the best insulation. If you compare the thickness of the insulation on the Bouge RV versus the Anker, there's almost a whole inch extra of insulation on the higher end fridges. this. Even though the Bouge RV and the Anker have both about a 60 watt draw when the compressor is on, the Bouge RV is not going to be as efficient because the insulation is not as good, so the compressor has to stay on for longer, so over a period of time it's going to use a lot more energy than a Anker. The problem is, once the sun goes down, this 288 watt battery will not power this fridge all night. So this low budget option, you may have to do some things to make this fridge last overnight, like freeze some water bottles to keep the food in here cold, or just plug it into a power source like a 120 volt AC, or plug it into the cigarette adapter of your car. On the other hand, when you get into the higher end fridges like this Anker has a 299 watt hour battery, and when this thing ran out in about 8 hours, this battery still had about 50% left on the charge, because it's more efficient and the insulation is a lot better on these. So if you do plan on going with a higher end battery powered fridge like this Anker, there's good news and bad news. Bad news is that these fridges start at around $600. But the good news is that Anker has sales all the time where you can score really good deals on this one. Last year they had some really good deals going on, and we're able to buy this 35 quart for $250, and we also bought a 40 quart for $300. Now since last year prices have gone up on everything, so you may not be able to score one for $250, but you could probably get it for less than the retail $600. If you're going completely off-grid, need rugged durability, camping in bear country, need something lockable, or just like the simplicity of going with ice, the ice cooler is probably your go-to. But if you want a plug-and-play solution, don't want your food submerged in water, want the ability to freeze, and love the idea of ditching bagged ice forever, a powered electric cooler might just change your camping game forever. An electric fridge isn't just for camping. We've probably used this fridge more for weekend trips to the grocery store where we don't have to bring ice and we want to buy frozen food and still go out and do stuff, or for house parties where we don't want water dripping all over the house. We probably use it for these other purposes more than we've used it for camping. So let me know in the comments below. Are you team ice or team electric cooler? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the link in the description, as I'll have links for everything that I mentioned in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.